Hello. Bro, how can you get late when you have a class at home? Oh god. Just text me, okay? All right, bye. All right, bye. Text me, okay? Bye.
Username. Yeah. Hi folks, good morning. This is Subhash here. Welcome back to the class. At least 14, 15 people online. All right, we'll get started in a minute.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. All right, folks, let's get started. So, folks, I request all of you to mute yourself, please, all of you. Thank you. So, yesterday we started talking about the software development methodologies, and as part of this, we were discussing about the different methods or phases, and we started talking about the planning and analysis phase. Then we said that planning and analysis basically is the initial phase where the goal is to identify the scope, identify the objective, and make sure that we clearly identify the scope, the goals, and also clearly identify the feasibility, whether it's feasible or not, and make sure that we take it to the next step, right? So the next step in this whole process, especially the requirements gathering, once we know that the requirements or the vision is clear, the next step is to elaborate the requirements, right? And as part of the requirements, we said that there are different type of milestones that you may end up delivering as a BA, right? The business requirement document, functional requirement document, use cases, EML diagrams, and so on, right? So, so as a business analyst, you will be playing a very critical role in the requirements gathering phase. And I think you are, as a business analyst, you are primarily responsible for interacting with the business users, and basically you will be responsible for documenting the requirements, right? But however, in this whole process, you need to understand that there may be one or two or multiple business analysts who will be working with you, and depending on how complex the project is, the whole project will be, there probably will be a senior business analyst or a lead BA who will be driving the requirements and who will be assigning the requirements to you. And you probably will be working on one of the modules, depending on what have been assigned to you. And again, you may be working with the business analyst, you may be a business BA, or you may be working on the other side, you may be a technical BA, which means that you are working more on the more closely with the technology, right? So with that being said, I was discussing yesterday that as a business analyst, one of the major role that you will be playing is documenting requirements, right? And obviously, in order to document requirements, you have to gather it. You have to interact with some users, and you have to document it, right? So, as a business analyst, what are the steps that you would follow in the process of gathering requirements? Or the question is methods involved in requirements gathering. What are the different methods or techniques that you would use in the process of gathering requirements? I think it is very important that you have a very clear understanding of how to gather requirements, what are the different methods that you will be using in the process of gathering requirements. All right. So, and again, this is one of the most important interview question as well. So the question is, as a business analyst, from the interview question standpoint of view, as a business analyst, what methods would you follow, or what procedures would you follow to gather requirements, or what are the different steps that would follow to gather requirements? So I think the question can be framed in different ways, but the answer is going to be the same. Okay. Step one. So first of all, if you have to gather requirements, the very first basic thing is identify the information. Identify the information that needs to be captured. Right? At least at a high level, you need to know what information is required, or what requirements are you getting. You have to have a very clear idea, what information is required for you, right? If you have to document the requirement. Once you identify the information, saying, okay, this is what I would need, then the next step is to identify the stakeholders, right? Because as a BA, you are actually talking to some individual and you're gathering it. Right? You're basically not defining these requirements yourself. Someone is dictating it and you're documenting it. And who is dictating it? Basically, subject matter experts or some users who know the business are going to dictate the requirement, and as a business analyst, you're going to document it. Right? So next step, and again, you have to identify who the stakeholders, right? There could be one user, could be two or three or multiple people who are responsible for dictating the requirement. So identifying the stakeholders is the next important step. Let me tell you why this is very important. Because what happens is once you have finished documenting the requirements have to be officially approved by the business users, right? Let us say if there are 4 business users who are supposed to be dictating and approving the requirements, and for some reason, if you have not identified the 4th subject matter expert, and if you are approaching him while having the requirements approval, if you ask him for an approval, he's not going to be happy with that because you have not included him in any of the meetings, right? So technically, he's going to give you a hard time, right? So always make sure, and then how do you identify stakeholders? Maybe you can ask the project manager, or you can ask, if you have identified one of the stakeholders, you can ask the stakeholder, to make sure if there are any other parties involved in the process, and ensure that all the stakeholders are at. You have to just ask. All right. Step 3. Step 3 is to set up a meeting. Set up a meeting. Right? Now, what kind of meetings are you going to set up, and how are you going to set up these meetings? Right? So there could be different types of meetings. It could be a JAD session. JAD session stands for Joint Application Development. Joint Application Development Session. Then you may also have a one-on-one session. One-on-one session or meeting, or have a brainstorming session. So these are the different types of sessions or meetings that you may set up as a video. Now, let's quickly talk about each of them. JAD session basically is a session where you invite the users, you have an objective, you have an agenda, and you basically try to identify the requirements and ask questions and identify requirements. Now, the meeting invitees or the attendees of the meeting could be business users. Sometimes you may also include the technical department also, because probably you may want to ensure that whatever requirements the business users are dictating in the meeting, someone from the technology is validating them and making sure that they are feasible or not, right? And you may have some architects or whoever is required to be part of it, right? So the goal is to basically identify the requirements, document it, and then it could be a group of people. Okay, depending on who is required, you will go ahead and invite the respective users. The next one is one-on-one session. One-on-one session is basically there is only one individual, you're having a one-on-one meeting. And brainstorming session is a session where you invite the audience, you have multiple solutions, and you brainstorm each and every solution, and the goal is to identify the best possible solution, right? And again, the audience could be just the business or technology, even testing, whoever is required in the process. Okay? Now, when you're setting up this meeting, the most important thing that is you have to remember is, folks, please mute yourself.
Subhash, I had a question. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So you said the joint application development meeting is, consists of users, tech developers, whoever we really need, and then the one-on-one session is just with us and the user?
Right.
Okay. And then the brainstorming session.
Assuming that you are trying to gather requirements, one-on-one session probably is with a business user or a subject matter expert.
Okay. And then the brainstorming session, who does that consist of again?
It could be, again, it could be business, technology, both.
Okay, so they're interchangeable. It seems like it's subjective.
Correct, that's correct. See, the reason why I use the word brainstorming is because you have multiple ideas, and basically you want to brainstorm each and every idea, come up with the best possible solution.
Okay.
Okay. Now, step 4 is, so when you're setting up a meeting, so again, these meetings could be in a conference room, if everybody is physically joining the meeting, or the meetings could be via audio or video, depends. And normally, you would, if you would set up the meetings using Outlook. If you're using an Outlook, then there's an option to invite the meeting, invite the attendees, and also select the type of the meeting you want. If you want to set up a meeting in a conference room, you would basically put the location details, and then everybody would know it, assuming that everybody is working in the same organization. Also, as part of the meeting invitation, the most important thing is to publish the agenda. Publish the agenda of the meeting. So when you are inviting someone, a group of people, for a meeting, there is a reason, right? And you need to know, and they need to know, everybody needs to know why they are meeting. The agenda should be clearly discussed. The primary reason for publishing the agenda is to give an indication to the users that, okay, this is basically why I'm meeting you for, and I need you to be prepared to give me answers. I need all the information. I need all the questions answered with respect to, these topics, and I would need you to be prepared. So basically, it's a direct indication that the users should be prepared, should be coming prepared to the meeting with the answers. Because what happens is, if you're not publishing a meeting, probably they may turn up and they may not have information on top of it. Because there's a lot going on in the project, and when somebody is attending the meeting, they have to be prepared to give you. So publishing the agenda of the meeting is one of the most important aspects. So once you publish the agenda of the meeting, before you okay, so your question is, what if you miss asking some information, or what if you miss publishing the agenda? That is kind of tricky. You probably can bring up the topics, but again, if the stakeholders have information, they'll give it to you, or they'll say, we didn't know that you were basically going to talk to us about this today, and then you have to postpone it. That's not good. If you have it, no, I understand what you're saying. I think that's what I answered. Okay, so basically what you're saying is that you have discussed, you have published that, okay, there are 5 topics that I'm going to discuss. You publish it, and let us say after 1 hour or 2 hours, you realize that, so maybe in the night time you dreamt of it, and you woke up and you realize that you basically want to discuss 2 more topics. The next day in the morning, at least, the moment you realize, I would also, just say, okay, these are the 2 additional items that I may also want to discuss as part of the meeting. But again, the meetings normally cannot be more than 2 hours. I would try my best not to take more than 1 hour. 30 minutes to 1 hour is good time. And if you ask for 2 hours or 3 hours, normally people hesitate to give away 2 hours of their day to you, right? So organize yourself. I think 2 hours is okay. You have to do some practical. Yeah, you can set up multiple meetings. And then again, if you have Outlook, you will have an option to look and see what are their available timings. If they're already occupied, Outlook has an option. You can see it. It's very simple. And once you publish the agenda of the meeting, before you get into the meeting, the most important thing is prepare the questionnaire. Okay, so preparing the questionnaire is one of the most important aspects, and you need to make sure that the thing is when you are getting into the meeting, you have invited everybody for the meeting. You should know what you are going to ask. You should be well versed with the questions that you are going to ask in the meeting and how you are going to drive the meeting. Because everybody's going to come and sit in the meeting. Nobody's going to speak, probably. I mean, why should they speak? Nobody is going to take the initiative because you have called for the meeting, you are the host, and host better be prepared to speak, right? Host just cannot sit like a guest.
Okay, we can send the questionnaire with the meeting invite.
Okay, so your point is, can we send the questionnaire along with the meeting invitation? Yes, you can also do that. You can also publish the agenda, and also eventually you can also publish the questionnaire also along with the meeting. I did that as a matter of fact myself, and what happened was the stakeholders, even before the meeting started, they replied back with all the answers. I was clear with all the answers. They were clear with all the questions, and I had to cancel the meeting. There is no need to meet at all. It happens sometimes. So if you have questions up front, then you can also publish. But if you feel more comfortable, having them presented during the interview, during the meeting, that's also fine. But I think it's good to publish it, at least 1 or 2 hours. Let us say you have published the agenda, or if you have requested for a meeting today, and at least 1 hour or 2 hours before the meeting, you can go and publish the questions. Saying that, okay, these are the open questions I have that I may want to discuss in the meeting. And also, I think one critical aspect that you have to remember as part of the meetings is that whenever you are requested for a meeting, the most important thing is to give at least 2 days prior notice. Do not ask for a meeting in the next 1 hour or 10 minutes, 15 minutes. That's not a good practice because people are not going to show for sure. Like I still remember when I was working with one of the banks in Minneapolis, I had one of the stakeholders who was very busy. His calendar was pretty much booked. And the first day when I met him, he said, Subhash, if you want to work with me, you and I should have an agreement. I was like, okay, fine, what do you want? He was like, I need you to give me at least 2 days prior notice. If you want to meet me for an hour or 2, I will give you time, but you have to give me 2 days prior notice. Don't send me any meeting requests, in the morning asking that I have to meet you in the evening or even the next day. I'm not going to accept, I'm not going to show up. Because I pre-plan my activities for 2 days, and I want to make sure that I'm being reasonable to you. So this is how we will work. So just imagine, and then again, whenever I try to stop by and talk to him, he would not even listen to me because he was genuinely busy. It's not that he was trying to give me a hard time. So and trust me, this is exactly what is going to happen in the real time. And if you are having difficulty getting of stakeholders, whatever time you get, you have to make the optimum utilization of the time that the stakeholders are spending.
It's possible that you ask the person how to get it without the exact
It's always good idea to set up a meeting, meet them personally and have a, conversation rather than having, email discussions. I mean, if you just have one question, probably you can email it. But, normally if you have a topic that you want to discuss, brainstorm, always it's recommended to, sit and discuss in detail.
Well, in this meeting, the technical team,
I mean, see, as I said, the audience, who are the audience required, is technical team required or not? That purely depends on your objective, your goals, your agenda. Normally what happens is in the typical SDLC, if I were the BA, I would always invite, the technical aspects of developers because if there is a requirement which is not feasible, they will stop you right away. So you are not going to waste time, identifying the requirement, documenting it, and again going back, the technology team is saying no, and again you are going. So you basically will avoid the back and forth and waste of time. Right?
Hi, Subhash. I have a question. You said like in brainstorming, if you have multiple ideas, you conduct the brainstorming method, right? Let's say there are two stakeholders and they're not agreeing to, let's say like one of the stakeholders going with one idea and one is not going with the other one. Then how will we deal with people like that?
Okay, I think that's a good question. And this is also one of the very, very frequently asked interview questions. So the other way of asking this is, how would you handle conflict? If there are conflicting requirements between stakeholders, how would you handle the situation? You don't say that's their problem. No. You just cannot say it's your problem, deal with it and come back. Because the moment you say it, you're going to be out of the job. You'll start looking for new jobs. All right. So I think this is actually bound to happen. Right? A simple example is when I was working in one of the banking projects. So we had two departments. One was the business, who was actually giving requirements, the operations and the business, and the other team was the compliance. Compliance. Compliance is very important. Compliance. Every application, every bank, the business that they do, the software that they sell to the customers, it has to be meeting the compliance, right? So so when I was gathering these requirements, so the business basically said, okay, this is what they want, when we are onboarding the customer or when we are creating a customer profile in our portfolio, this is the information that we want. And so I documented the requirements, and again I set up a meeting with the compliance team. And they said, no, this is not what we want. We want some additional information to be captured, because by compliance, we have to make sure that our system is in compliance with the some anti-money laundering and different compliance process. And as you see here, there was a conflict, and each of them, the business side, they wanted to make the client onboarding simple, but at the same time, the compliance team wants to make sure that the process is in compliance with the whole industry, right? So then what I had to do was I had to again put them together and identify each of the business sides, here to each of the business side conversation, and basically go back, do the research. What is stakeholder one asking? And then how is it feasible? What is stakeholder two asking? And how is it different? What exactly, first of all, I mean, both of them could be wrong, right? It's not that just because two people have a difference of opinion, either one of them is right, right? So when I went back and when I did the analysis, so I had to go set up multiple meetings with them, deep dive into the existing systems, understand the compliance, and then set up multiple meetings and kind of narrow them down into what is right and what is wrong and what makes sense. And you have to, end of the day, you have to bring them to the same page, right? And then I had to basically go back, do some research on by looking at some existing documents, looking at the existing systems which are already built, which were in compliance, compare the systems, and show them the results and okay, this is what we already have, which is already in compliance, and showing them the results and showing them what makes more sense, to the project. And end of the day, you have to basically bring them to the same.
You have an issue with two departments telling them. Do you sometimes go to like upper level management so they can make a better decision?
I mean, see, going to the upper level management basically is the last thing that I would do. Until I absolutely am not able to, bring the teams on the same page. So that's the last thing I would do. I mean, basically, if you are, going to the upper level management, it means that it is an escalation, right? And you don't want to escalate things until it is absolutely required. What happens is, if you are escalating things, without a valid reason, people will come back hard at you. I think one of the key aspects that actually reminds me about a business analyst role is that as a BA, I think you should have a very, very good relationship with every individual in the team, because your role is you are a people's person. You know, if you are messing up the relationship with any individual, you know, they are going to give you a tough time. You know, if they do not cooperate, for instance, if the business is not cooperating with you, they're not giving you right requirements, they're not spending time with you, it's not good. You're not going to do your job. And if the technology team is not properly, you know, listening to your requirements, they're not following instructions properly, and if they're trying to misinterpret and if they're not giving you time, and that's going to also, you know, give you a hard time. So either way, the role of the business analyst definitely is to make sure that you have a very cordial relationship with every individual in the team. I mean, see, the thing is, everybody is under stress. I mean, I'm not saying that a VA is not under stress. I personally have faced the heat from the business side, and a lot of heat from the technology side, where developers are upset about, you know, the requirement has changed. They have already spent a lot of time working on it, and now I'm asking them to change something. They are not happy about it. They're very upset, and they're going to, you know, give their peace of mind, but that doesn't mean that you have to react, right? So you have to balance yourself.
Small change in requirement probably hundreds of hours of work.
Exactly. Small change in requirements could basically impact a lot, right? They probably have to redo everything within the same given time. And then obviously they're not going to be happy about it, right?
So you pass information to the technology. You go with the BA or you pass it to you?
Okay, so basically your question is, so there are two business analysts, one on the business side and one is on the technology side. And let us say if you are a BA on the business side, once you document requirements, then you pass it on to the other BA who is working on the technology side to document the low-level requirements. You will not be able to, see, the thing is, if there is a process in place, you have to follow the process. If you try to cut short, then if you are trying to, no, if there is a process in place saying that, okay, this is how we will work, then you have to work accordingly. And if you are cutting short an individual who is trying to work with the technology team, and he is not going to be happy about it. That is why if I am working with closely with the technology team, and technically I am supposed to be feeding them information, but however, if the BA on the business side is basically ignoring me and he's talking to me, I wouldn't be happy about it. I mean, that's not a good sign, because, you know, because your role basically is no longer important. Depending on the situation, I would basically involve the other BA also. I mean, as I said, right, it's all situational driven. You know, whether you want to have multiple BAs, one BA with you to help you, you know, defend yourself. Yeah, sometimes you may have to do it. Sometimes when the business basically is asking for a change, and then the technology team is coming back and saying that they cannot do it, and then if you have to go back and communicate this to the business, they probably will not be happy about it, right? They ask for something, they are paying for it, and you're telling them that they won't get it. They're definitely not going to be happy about it, right? And in those cases, you know, when you try to convey it, probably they wouldn't be able to understand what you're trying to say, or they don't want to hear to what you're saying. But at the same time, if a senior technical architect or a developer is speaking, probably he can defend himself because he knows what he's doing, right? So depending on the situation, I would, you know, try to involve people, you know, in the meeting, whoever is required, to back myself.
I just have can you explain briefly like step 4 and 5? So once we brainstorm, we would know the agenda of the meeting, and then we do the meeting, or?
I think step 3 and 4 are combined together. I just wrote it separately. You set up a meeting, you decide what kind of meeting do you want, and once you decide what kind of meeting you want, you basically will send a meeting request, and in the meeting request, you will clearly identify what are the different aspects that you're going to discuss as part of the meeting.
Okay. All right. And then you also have to prepare the question to ask in the meeting, right?
Correct. So we prepare a questionnaire before the meeting.
All right. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. So prepare a questionnaire.
Subhash. One question. Can you explain the difference between the GAD, Joint Application Development, and the workshop? It's the same kind of methodology to gather information?
It's all different terminology, but a workshop or a joint application development technically is the same.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
People use different jargons, to discuss the same the concepts, but a requirements workshop or a joint application development session, technically both refer to the same.
It's the same kind of meeting?
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, once you prepare the questionnaire, before you get into the meeting, okay, you have to make sure that you have given a quick introduction, because what happens is, even though in spite of publishing the meeting request, people are so busy that they have meetings throughout the day. They keep hopping from one meeting to the other, and sometimes they don't even look at the agenda. They just get into the meeting. The calendar pops up. They just get into the meeting. So once everybody gets into the meeting, the first thing that you need to do is introduce yourself and make it very clear of what is the objective of the meeting. Let them know that, okay, thanks for coming, and this is basically the purpose of the meeting, and this is what I want to discuss. These are the different items that I want to discuss. So just to make sure everybody is on the same page, this is what I want to accomplish today. The reason why you have to specify this clearly is because there is a chance that even in spite of having setting up this agenda, people may derail the meeting. So for instance, I am one of the stakeholders, and there are multiple people, and I just had to have one conversation which was pending, and then I found one of the guys who could give me answers. So what I'm doing is, what I can do is I can basically just start talking some other topics which is not even related. So basically, this individual has literally hijacked your meeting, right? We basically have put so much effort to bring everybody and accomplish something which is not happening, because you hardly have 1 hour, and you have to make sure you get everything in 1 hour, because you cannot ask for multiple meetings, for the same topic again and again, right? So you cannot let anybody hijack your meeting. If somebody is trying to derail, politely, it will happen. It will happen, and then you have to politely ask them to, come back to the conversation, because we have an agenda. There is a reason why the meeting was set. Okay, so and then start shooting all the questions, and once they start giving you the answers, you have to make sure that you document the summary, right? You basically probably make some notes, running notes out of the meeting, and also you have to be really good in summarizing it. Probably if somebody is giving you an answer, you should have your own shorthand skills to kind of summarize it quickly. Notes for yourself. You may not be able to elaborate the whole answer, but at least some summary where what exactly was this, what was the answer, right? And again, remember, it is very, very important that you capture every information that is coming to you.
Do you not record meetings?
Do you not record meetings? That depends.
Your notes.
See, if you every organization has a policy. Sometimes when you set up a audio or video conference, sometimes it is recorded, sometimes it is not. If there is a recording available, yes, you can basically take the recording and you can listen to what happened and you can summarize. But most of the time, it won't be recorded. Okay? And technically, if you get into a meeting, most of the users are not comfortable with you recording the meeting. Even if you want to record it personally, they may not be comfortable because they keep changing their versions. And I don't want somebody holding me at a gunpoint saying that, okay, this is what you said. Most of them, they are not comfortable having their conversations recorded. But even if you want to record, you cannot record it secretly because by law you basically have to let people know that you have to ask their permission before you record. Okay. Now step 6. So once you have recorded once you have noted, and then again, one of the very basic things that you need to remember is whenever you are driving a meeting or whenever you are joining a meeting requested by somebody else, or even if your manager is asking you to just stop by meet him, no matter what the conversation is, no matter what kind of meeting it is, even if your manager is asking you to stop by and meet him in his office, or someone has requested you to attend a meeting, some requirements to the meeting, it is very important. The very basic thing is that you always go to the meeting with a pen and a paper. Okay, this is very, very basic. I still remember 13 years back. So I was basically, I had a meeting with my manager to review the requirements. Right. So all I did was I just took a printout of the requirement document, got into the meeting. So he looked at me, and the first question he asked was, okay, so but you basically are claiming that you are a business analyst, and you are coming to a meeting, and you don't have a pen and a book with you to write down notes. What kind of a business analyst are you? So this was the first question I had to face in my first meeting. So then I started realizing, so these are basics that you cannot, which cannot go wrong. Right? Always make sure that, I mean, it could be a requirements meeting, or someone is actually, your boss or some colleague is actually asking you to meet them. Always carry a pen and a book. You never know what you may have to record. So it's always better to be prepared. It means that you are prepared for the meeting, for the conversation. Right? So once you make notes, then the next step is you go back and you publish the minutes of meeting. It's also called as MOM, minutes of the meeting. Okay. Now, what is minutes of the meeting? Minutes of meeting. And again, this is basically published. You can publish this in an email, or there are predefined meeting minute templates. Every organization has their own predefined templates. Now, if you're asking me what information is normally captured in a meeting minute, you will capture the list of attendees who attended the meeting, the key conclusions, the decisions made in the meeting, the executive decisions made in the meeting, the open items. When I say open items, the pending action items. So for instance, if you had a question for one of the stakeholders, and he's like, oh, you know what, I don't have an answer, I'll get back to you in 2 days. So the takeaway for the stakeholder is to come back with the answer, and you also have to record the due date, right? So stakeholder John basically has to come back with this answer, and this is the due date. So that information is also documented in the minutes of meeting, because if there is an open item, you want to follow up on that. Because the objective of having a meeting was to close all the open questions. And if there is still an open item, you have to have a follow-up loop, make sure that you document it. And once you publish this, right? And then again, you will be publishing it to everybody who has attended, probably your project managers, whoever needs to be included in the summary of the meeting. And the most important part is, the moment you publish this meeting minutes summary, the assumption is that the attendees or whoever are the recipients, they have to look at the summary, and if they are not okay with what you have documented in the summary, they have to reply back. They have to reply back saying that, okay, this is not what we discussed, but this is what we have to do. And if there is a difference of opinion, right? And if they are not replying back, it means that they are agreeing to what you have summarized in the meeting. And eventually, that information will be actually documented in your report, right?
Subhash?
Yeah.
I have a question. So, to prepare the minutes of the meeting, it should be after the meeting, right? It's prepared after the meeting, and it's published after the meeting is done, right?
That is correct. So what happens is, as I said, you basically summarize everything, in a notepad, and you go back after the meeting, and at least I would publish the meeting minutes the same day. That's correct. It's
right.
published after the meeting.
Okay, so if you are the one calling the meeting, you will be the one to prepare the minutes, right?
I mean, if I was the host,
another person.
If I was the host, if I have published, if I have set up the meeting, then I have to publish the meeting minutes. And what happens is sometimes is, let us say, if some other BA is actually setting up the meeting, and they may, or your senior business analyst has set up the meeting, and he may ask for help and ask you to document the summary. So he will invite you, they will invite you, and you may have to document the summary for them. And that is one of the main reasons listening is very important for a BA.
Is it published in form of an email, or else?
Yeah, it could be published in the form of an email, or every organization has a predefined a format where it says, okay, list of participants, the key decisions made, summary of the bullets that were discussed, open items. So it depends. And you can pretty much publish it in as simple as in an email.
How is that depends on to an email?
Yes, it's an email. You publish the the document, summary document. Yeah, Rohil, go ahead.
Thanks. Hey, just a quick question. How would you document an unresolved conflict between two stakeholders in that minute of meeting?
I'm sorry, come again?
How would you document an unresolved conflict between two stakeholders in the summary you would give out at the end of the meeting?
I'm not sure if I understand what your question is.
Like, sometimes a meeting could end because of the lack of time, and there might be a conflict between two different opinions of stakeholders who attended the meeting. How would you document that conflict without offending one?
I think you can basically summarize. First of all, if you ran out of the time, then if there is a conflict going on, then you can still put that item as a follow-up item, saying that requirements still need to be finalized for this particular topic, and you can basically set up a meeting. You can just say still requirements discussion still in progress. I will set up a follow-up meeting to finalize it. You don't have to say there was a conflict going on in any way. You can just say it has not been finalized. The discussion was in progress, and I'll set up a follow-up meeting for the thing.
Great,
Okay?
thanks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Subhash, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
How detailed is the MOM? As in, like, by the name it says minutes of the meeting, but how detailed is it? Just a basic summary of the topics that were covered during the meeting, or is it actually minute by minute?
I mean, it's basically it's high level. It's always high level, and you basically organize them into bullets and represent the information.
Okay, so
it doesn't have to be low level.
Okay, so if you're sitting down in a meeting, just documenting the requirements, you can open up another Word page and you can just start off with a summary in the beginning because you know you're going to have to post it.
Yep.
Okay.
I just searched for a template here online while we were speaking. So this is just for sample template, meeting minutes, the date, see the attendees, the scribe basically is the host, the agenda. Yeah. Next meeting, next minute items, adjournment. Okay?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Right. So this is basically how you would capture information. I think this is very critical for any business because as a business analyst, the primary role is to gather and document requirements, and I think as a BA you will be playing a very, very important role in this whole process. And also never hesitate to ask questions. And also make sure that whatever you're asking is making sense. Okay. Yeah, someone has a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, when you give us an assignment, will we
Samreen, your voice is very low. If you could speak up, please.
Yes. Let me know if you can hear me. Otherwise, I can even put the question in the box.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. I was saying, when you give us the assignments, would it be, like a project or like concept, a hypothetical situation where we would have to use all of these steps and also the steps that we learned yesterday?
See, this is a theory concept, but when we start discussing the use cases and other concepts, you will exactly know how to do, and I'll give you all the directions of how to work on the assignment.
Okay.
Yeah, and in the real time also, when you're documenting requirements, this is exactly what you have to do. These are the steps that you have to follow while gathering requirements. Any questions, folks, so far? All right. So, as I said, I'm not going to discuss any of the milestones right now. So, as a business analyst, when you're gathering requirements, you may end up documenting a BRD or FRD, use cases, UML diagrams, UI markups, data mapping, data analysis, RTM. So, this pretty much is the exhaustive list of deliverables that you may document as part of the requirements gathering. Excuse me. And I'm not going to discuss about these documents right now, as we're going to have sessions from next week where our whole focus is going to be on these documents. Okay. All right. So after the requirements gathering phase, the next step is the design. Right. So what is the design phase? What is the design phase? What happens in the design phase? What is the objective of the design phase? who are the participants involved in the design phase, and what are the milestones delivered in the design phase. I think these are key concepts that you need to understand as a business analyst. So in the design phase, the objective of the design phase is to design the architecture of the product. Every software will have a technical architecture, and the goal of the design phase is to design the technical architecture of the project. And the most important document delivered or milestone delivered as part of this process is called as the TDD, Technical Design Document. A technical design document is the crucial milestone delivered as part of the design. All right, let's take a simple example to illustrate what I mean by design. So let's say you want to construct a house. Right? You want to construct a house, and you have your scope defined. You know what exactly you want. You have the budget, and your requirements are clear. Right? You want a 5-bedroom house with a swimming pool, with a master bedroom, with a 4-car parking garage. So everything is very clear. Your requirements are clear. You have the approvals, everything. Okay. Now what would you do? Will you go ahead and hire the construction team and start the construction activity, or will you hire a civil engineer to design a blueprint or architecture print for your house? What are you going to do? You need a civil engineer, right? So you need a civil engineer to come up with a blueprint, right, of the architecture design of the house. Without an architecture design, you cannot construct a house. So similarly, even here, so
it's like creating a prototype of a product before creating a product?
It's not I mean, I don't know if I want to say it is a prototype, but designing the architecture. Yeah, I mean, yeah, in simple terms, you may want to call it as a prototype, but here we are designing the architecture, right? So because if I have to develop this product, we have to have an architecture. I mean, when the construction team comes into the picture, they have to know exactly. I mean, you just cannot tell them that, okay, we need a 5-bedroom house. They need to know the dimensions. They need to know where exactly the pillars need to be planted, how the dimensions are, what is the size of the master bed, where does it start, where does it end. All these are design requirements that the construction team would need. Right? So it is very important that the technical design is properly framed, because the whole project will depend on the design. Similarly, even in the IT industry, every software will have a design or should have a design, and the technical architects are responsible for designing the architecture of the project. So folks, please mute yourself. Some background noise. All right. So it is very important that the technical architects come up with the design. And another question that you may want to know is, so if the technical architects have to design the architecture, what information do you think would they need? What is the input required by the technical architect in order to come up with the technical design?
The requirements?
Yeah, it's the requirements. That's correct. See, if you approach a civil engineer, it's a very simple example. If you approach a civil engineer and ask him to design the architecture of the house, what is the first question he's going to ask you? He's going to ask you, what do you want? What do you want? Right? He's going to ask you the requirement. Right? So, for the technical design team to design the architecture of the project, the primary input is the requirement. And who is going to give them the requirements? A business analyst. Right? So, as a business analyst, as soon as your requirements are complete, right? As soon as you have received an approval from the business, saying that, okay, this is what we want, then you set up meetings with the design team. You set up meetings with the design team, you give them a walkthrough, help them understand the requirements, and also answer all the requirement related questions. They're not going to ask you technical questions. Any question that is going to be challenged, is this requirement related question, right? And as a business analyst, you need to make sure that you answer all the questions. Assuming that you have documented the requirements, you should have all the information on top of your head. Or sometimes if you are not clear on what needs to be done, you can also go back and you can give them the updates. But remember one thing, guys. When someone is asking you a question, a requirement-related question or any question, and if you are not sure, just do not blindly say something, because you will be accountable. You will be held accountable. If you are not 100% sure with the answer, you can always say, I'll get back to you. Always, always, always. This is a very simple fundamental. Do not speak for the sake of it. Not sure, that is fine. But if you are giving them wrong information, they're not okay with it. I mean, this is not just a requirement-related session, but let us say if you're working in a project and if the project manager is asking you a question saying, okay, I have a task for you, can you get it done in the next 4 hours? Just don't say yes. If you are not sure, don't say yes. You can say, okay, can you give me like a few minutes? Maybe let me rethink, let me see what is the effort required, and can I get back to you in the next few minutes or in the next 10 minutes? Because what happens is people, will get you based on how you are responding to the situation. And it's completely okay to take time and give the right information rather than just going back and forth, with incorrect information. That basically puts your credibility on the line.
Better to under-promise and over-deliver.
Exactly, that's right. Always under-promise and over-deliver. It is good. Dikshit, I cannot hear you. Dikshit, we have to unmute. Yeah, go ahead.
लॉगिन जब तुम करती हो तो हेडफोन या स्पीकर या यूज
Dikshit? I think Dikshit has a question. Or you can probably type it. Yeah, go ahead. You can basically include the technical design team in the requirements meeting as well. Now, one more thing. When you start reviewing the requirements with the technical architects, they may basically come back and they may say, okay, you know what, this is what you have asked, and technically it's not feasible. It's not feasible to implement this solution, right? And it's the same as you go to a civil engineer and you ask for a 5-bedroom house. He may do the analysis and he may come back and he may say, based on the space that you have, I don't think it makes sense to have a 5-bedroom. It's not going to work. You can probably get a 4-bedroom decent house, right? When that happens, you basically have to understand what the issue is, right? And in simple terms, and you have to set up meeting with the business again go back to them and let them know that, okay, this is what you asked for, but due to the technical challenges, this is not feasible. But however, these are the other possible solutions which are kind of close to what you asked for. I mean, always go back not only with the problem, but also give them solutions. It's not that, okay, you tell them this is not possible. The next question they're going to ask you is, okay, so what is the solution? It shouldn't be that, okay, I'll get back to you after 1 hour. No, when you're going back to them, go back to the resolution also and give them multiple choices so that they know, and which choice makes sense for them.
Give them
Okay.
Your technical understanding has to be so that the technical opportunity can take advantage of your lack of understanding. Has that ever happened? Does that make sense?
They probably may take advantage of lack of knowledge, but there is nothing I can do about it.
So this is expected to be like really proficient in it.
No, so first of all, a business analyst has nothing to do with technology. And when they start designing this technical document, design document, TDD, I don't know what goes in the TDD. I don't understand what a TDD looks like, what goes in the TDD, what information is in the TDD. That is purely technical. And as a BA, nobody is expecting you to understand the content that is documented in the TDD. Okay. All right, anybody else any questions, folks?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to, could you just briefly describe once again, you're describing that if you don't have the answer to the question that the person, like the business, like the, the business stakeholders, you can answer them, what would be the proper response to them?
I would say, I'll get back to you.
I'll get
back to you with the information.
With the information and say, well, if you don't understand, like they also want the answer, when and how. Do you have, do I have to come up with the answers?
I mean, you can basically say that, as I said, right, you can always say that I can probably get back to you depending on how critical the situation is. You can judge the situation accordingly, and you can take time. You can say, if it is really urgent, then you can say probably, can you give me an hour, I'll get back to you. Or if it is not urgent, maybe, by end of the day or tomorrow. So depending on the situation and the sense of urgency, you have to ask for time. It's not that, they have a critical, they're in a critical situation where they need inputs to proceed, and you're telling that I'll come back to you after 2 days. That's not good.
Yeah, that sounds not bad. Okay, that sounds bad.
Right. So
okay, thank you.
You basically have to judge the situation and act accordingly.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Subhash?
I
have a question too. Question is that at the time of this meeting, when you are talking to different stakeholders, would you also ask them how much time they would need for their development, like for the technical design and for the development and for the testing in the first meeting, or they would tell us? Or
okay, is it Nasir?
Yes, this is Nasir.
Hey, Nasir. Just to let everybody know, Nasir basically is one of our consultants. He worked with JP Morgan Chase last year, and he's basically in Chicago right now, and he's going to start new assignment with one of our banks in Chicago in the next 10 days. So he's back. He attended one of my classes last year, and he's back to refresh himself before he starts the project in the next 10 days. Okay, so Nasir, just to answer your question, I think what happens is when you start interacting with the business users and when you're documenting requirements, the timeline that is required for you to finish the requirement, obviously you have to judge and you have to analyze and you have to tell them. And the timing that is required for the technology team for the technical architecture team to finish their design, there is a plan in place. There is a project plan in place which has predefined what is the amount of work involved in the technical design, when are they going to start the design, when are they going to end the design. So all that is predefined in the project plan. So I would basically go with the project plan, make sure that the expectations are set correctly, and make sure that I'm following those timelines. I mean, end of the day, whenever someone is giving you a task, the most critical thing is understand if they're not, see the thing is they may ask you to get this done and they may not tell you when, but it is your responsibility to ask them, okay, when is this due? When is this due? And because you may probably have already, items in your plate that you're working on, so you need to let them know that, okay, this is what you already have. What is the priority? How critical is this? How soon it is required? So based on that, you basically have to plan yourself and be prepared to deliver. So it's all about planning and organizing.
Okay, thank you, Subhash.
Yeah.
Subhash?
Yeah.
One question. Can you explain briefly about why or what is the importance of gathering information?
Well, what is the importance of gathering information?
Yeah, what is the importance of gathering the information?
So as a business analyst, it's your responsibility to document requirements, right? You're responsible for documenting the requirement, and someone is dictating the requirement or defining the requirement, and as a business analyst, your responsibility is to interact with them, identify the information, and document the information. And in this whole process, I think it is important for you to identify who the stakeholders are, who is the business user or stakeholder. Stakeholder, if you're asking me who is a stakeholder? Stakeholder is the business representative who is dictating the requirement. Someone who is responsible for the product, right? So in a bank, for example, Chase has this Chase Freedom Card, and this credit card has certain set of features that comes with the card. There is someone who is defining all these rules, right? So they are the business owners or stakeholders. They basically define the business rules. They are responsible for implementing the product. They are the product owners. Okay, and as a BA, it's your responsibility to talk to them, interact with them, identify what they want, and document what is required.
Okay.
And stakeholder basically is the business user or representative who is responsible for dictating the requirements. Okay. Anybody else? Any questions on the design? All right. Let's move on to the development phase. So the development phase is the phase where the programmers or developers start working on the development activity. As we said, once the technical architect or the civil engineer finishes the design, then basically the construction activity starts, right? Where the construction team will start the construction activity. Similarly, even here, the development team will be initiating the programming activities. And the question here is, if the development team has to start their development, what are the inputs that they would need? What are the inputs required for the development team to start their development activity. They need the design and the requirement. That's correct, right? So they would need to understand the requirement, and they would need the design, because they have to construct the house based on, see, if the construction team has to start the construction, they need to understand the requirement, and after they understand the requirement, they need to know how to implement it by looking at the design. So the technical design document and the requirements, the BRDF or whatever requirement documents that we have provided are the key inputs for the development team to start the development activity. And what is your role as a business analyst here? Again, you will be responsible for setting up meetings with the development team. Same whatever you did with the design, right? You basically explain the requirement. The same thing you will also be doing with the development team. You'll set up meetings, you'll give them the walkthrough of the requirement, make sure that they understand the requirement. And on the other side, the technical design team who has finished the technical architecture design, they will set up meetings with the development, and they'll also explain them how to construct the application, the architecture of that. So the interaction between the design and development, how exactly they communicate, what do they communicate, what do they interact with each other, that is not a BA, BHR. A business analyst is not involved in those things.
I'm sorry, I might have raised this. No. Do you deal with the budget as well? For example, in the technical design document, if you decide that you want a really fast database and you go for the SAP, which is expensive, does a business analyst deal with, okay, sorry.
Yeah, okay. All right. So there is a budget also involved, budget planning involved, but a business analyst is nowhere involved in budget. The budget plan is always taken care by the project manager.
Okay.
The project manager is the one who actually identifies the budget, prepares the high-level, low-level budget estimates, reviews it with the business, makes sure that the business is approving the budget, and until there is an agreement on what is the budget, what is the approval, the project will not kick off the next level.
Who deals with the budget with IT? For example, if I need implementing something that's expensive, or if you need a feature which is going to cost money, who deals with that like later on?
The subject matter expert or stakeholder. Whoever is the product owner, because he basically has the say. He has the budget to approve. So he is basically going to interact with the IT manager and decide what can be done and what cannot be done, what can be affordable, what cannot be affordable.
How far is BA?
We'll talk. The business analyst role is not ending here. It will keep going. You will know it when I continue. Okay. Now, in the development phase, the milestone accomplished is the project solution, software solution, right? So the programmers will basically program. They come up with the code, and the project solution is developed and delivered. So once the development is complete, and again, they may have their own technology that they are using. As a BA, I wouldn't worry about what technology, what architecture. So these are items that I don't have to say, or I don't have to understand what they're working on. Sorry?
It's not an advantage if he understands technical aspects. Companies look for that?
Not really, but I think on the database side, some SQL concepts, with that exception, I don't think BA has to worry about in any of the technical aspects. But if you understand how system works, how the flow works, probably that will make sense. That will help you. The next important aspect is the testing. So let me quickly list out some of the important milestones accomplished in the testing. Test plan, test cases, defects, and report, testing, sign off. rejection. I'm not going to speak much about testing right now. I'm just going to give you some high-level overview because we're going to have special class, detailed, very detailed discussion on testing as well. So the objective of testing is to make sure that the product developed, the software application developed by the testing team is meeting the standards. And so before it is delivered to the end users, every product, as a matter of fact, is tested, right? Before it is delivered to the customers, you know, be it software, hardware, or any product has to be tested before it's delivered to the customer. So here, as part of the testing team is responsible for preparing a test plan, you know, test the product, make sure it is, you know, it is good, it is fit for usage, and it is meeting the standards as per the expectations. And once the testing team is comfortable and they have tested the application thoroughly, then they have to sign off or they have to approve, saying that, okay, or certify, saying that, okay, we have tested the product and it's basically working and it is meeting the expectations. Or if they're not comfortable, they say, okay, we are not comfortable, we are rejecting this, then the technology team has to again go back, look at all the defects, all the issues, and fix it, and then, you know, have it reviewed again. So until the testing team is going to approve or officially sign off, the product will not be delivered to the customers. Okay. Now, in the implementation phase, so once the product goes to the implementation, what happens here is the product will be installed or promoted to the customers. Implementation is all about rolling out the product software to the customers. So there are different ways of doing it. The software will be maybe published as CDs, or you know, the customers probably have to purchase a serial number to download and install. So there are different ways of distributing the software, and or it could be a website where the users will get a link, a user ID password to log in. So there are different ways of accessing these applications. Once the product is rolled out, and once the customers start using it, then technically the project is supposed to be called as is supposed to be in the support or maintenance phase, where all the issues, you know, when the customer is using it, you know, they may face issues, right? So all the issues faced by the customers are reported. They are again reported to the technical team. Issue will be flagged, fixed, and make sure that the customer is able to move forward. So all the issues in the real time are handled as part of the production support and maintenance. So this is technically the whole entire software development life cycle. And I think we spent some decent enough time talking about the traditional SDLC, because, you know, understanding this is very critical. If you understand this concept, then the rest of them, you know, it's not going to take much time. You'll be able to finish the rest of the concepts in no time.
How will it spill over into the business, like towards the end of the cycle, towards testing and implementation?
Oh yeah, I think I forgot to focus on the testing. It's a good question. I think a business analyst plays a very critical role in the testing phase, because once you have documented the requirements, what else are you going to do? You know, you have to engage yourself, right? So technically, the role of a business analyst is not going to end there. You will play an important role in the testing, and you will be involved in the testing, test cases, reporting the defects, defect management. There's so many activities that you are involved, and I think it's very important for you to understand the whole testing concepts also. That is the reason I'm taking at least 2 classes on testing, exclusively on testing. So we're going to cover every aspect about testing. And this is only manual. There is no tools involved, so I wouldn't worry about it.
during this phase, is there less work for a business analyst though, or is it?
No, I don't want to say there is less work. There will be a lot of work because testing is a huge thing. And the testing team is going to report so many defects. You have to track the defects. You know, there are releases. You will be testing the application. There's so many things going on. So many things.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead, Sarah.
So we discussed about the risk analysis and mitigation plan and SWOT analysis and planning and analysis phase, right? So in the testing phase, what if the defects come up and then we have to work on the project again? Wouldn't it affect the project timing or the time needed for the project to be completed?
Okay, so her question is, so if the testing team is reporting defects and if the defects have to be fixed, what if it is taking too much time? Would it impact the project timelines? Is her question. See, normally during the project planning, the testing phase basically is allocated time, right? Now, the testing phase is not only just for the testing team to test and report defects. That the time also includes the time required for the developers to fix the issue and resolve the issue and you know, promote the code again with the fixes. So all this is already estimated and the testing timelines are planned accordingly. But however, as you said, there may be a situation where there are too many defects. Like for example, if there are few developers who have done a pathetic job, who have not implemented the code properly, then they may take, there are a lot of defects reported and it may take more than what was estimated time to fix the defects, and which may actually impact the project timelines also. That may also happen, which is not good for the project though. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yeah, I mean,
yes.
It's as simple as the Murphy's Law. Anything that could go wrong will go wrong. Okay, anybody has any questions on the SDLC so far? If we don't have any questions, then let's move on to the next topic, which is the Waterfall Methodology. Now, Waterfall Model or Waterfall Method is also one of the most popular, or was one of the most popular software development methods used to implement software solution, and the steps that are followed in the process of implementing the solution using Waterfall Model are exactly the same. The analysis, planning and analysis, requirement gathering, design, development, testing, implementation. Nothing has changed. But however, when you're implementing solution using the Waterfall Model is a linear model. And Waterfall Model always recommends that when you have initiated a particular phase, when you're working on a particular phase, you cannot move forward from one phase to another phase until you are 100% complete on a particular phase. So for instance, let's say if you are working on the scope image, right? You have to define the scope clearly. You have to exactly identify the entire scope. Until you are clear with the scope definition, you cannot move forward with the requirements analysis or requirements gathering. And once you finish, once you say that, okay, we are done with the scope, and once you move on to the requirements gathering phase, once you start the requirements gathering phase, you cannot go back and you cannot change the scope. So the moment you finish a particular phase and you move to the next phase, the previous phase is frozen. So for instance, you are working on a design and the requirements, if the business is coming back and asking for a change in the requirement, that cannot happen because this is a waterfall methodology. The reason why it is called as a waterfall methodology is the steps in this process represent the flow of water. When water flows from one step to the next step, the water cannot go back, right? So it is only one way, water flows downwards, right? And the water cannot go back, cannot go upstream, right? So here, similarly, the waterfall methodology recommends that you have to take one step at a time. Make sure that you have finished whatever you are working on. You have to finish it 100% before you move to the next. This is what the waterfall methodology recommends. And normally, in most of the applications, waterfall methodology is strongly, at least in the current industry, there are very less projects which are being implemented by waterfall methodology. I think that today everything is agile. Most of the projects are being implemented using agile methodology. Because you see, the thing is, if the methodology is so rigid, because I think this is a rigid model. Because what if I have to change some requirements? What if we have to change the design? The waterfall model says that you cannot do it. So technically, this is not going to work in the current industry where things are very fast and agile, right? And
So Subhas, this is not flexible.
Sorry?
So this is not flexible methodology.
Yeah, this is not flexible. But if you're asking me, in which industry, which environment would a waterfall model suit? I would say if you're trying to automate a process where the business process is well defined, where you know end to end of what you want, what exactly you are trying to accomplish, you know the business process. So for instance, most of the state and federal projects that are being implemented are using waterfall methodology because the process doesn't change. The business process doesn't change. For instance, if you have to apply a license, a driver's license in New Jersey, in the state of New Jersey, the process has been the same for the past 30 years, right? So the business process is solid, and when they have to automate the solution, they know exactly what needs to be done. They have a very clear understanding of how to start, where to start. The process is well defined. For instance, sales or manufacturing, invoicing, these processes are well defined already. So when you have to manufacture a product, the process of manufacturing a product is not going to change at all. Right? So wherever the business process is well defined and stable, when you exactly know what needs to be done, in those environments, waterfall model makes more sense because if you look at the other side of it, it is more organized. You're taking one step at a time, finishing it off 100%, and you're moving on. Versus some other methodology which we're going to discuss. Unlike it, we are going to go back and forth.
So this would be suitable for just this short-term projects, right? Because if the testing, if you find any defects on testing,
I wouldn't say short-term projects, but wherever the business process is well defined and organized, so in that type of environment, this would make more sense. It is nothing to do with short-term or long-term. Normally, waterfall projects, the applications developed in waterfall are normally long-term projects.
So how do we know which model to use? Is that something we consult with the team? Is that something the stakeholders are telling us? Or is it just...
Oh, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. So our question is, how do we decide which model would make sense to which software development. I think when I start talking about Agile, I'm going to take an example and I'm going to illustrate how which model will suit which process. But however, just to answer your question for now, based on the business request, based on what type of software they want, based on the mode of the delivery that they're asking for, the nature of the delivery, and the frequency of the software deliveries that the business is asking for. Based on the business request, the technical team will have to decide and choose which model will suit the business. So the final say is based on the business need and the business request, based on their business process, the technology department will decide which methodology to choose. Because see, the methodology that is being chosen to implement the solution should make sense to the business. So the technology team will have to make sure that they understand the business request, the process, and they have to cater to the business process accordingly. So they will choose the respective method or model based on the business needs. We'll also deep dive and then discuss about this more. I'll take some examples and I'll discuss about this when I start talking about Agile.
The payroll management software would be Waterfall, right?
Sorry, what did you say?
Like a payroll management software? That would be Waterfall.
Could be, because you know the process, you know the end-to-end solution. So, yeah. So wherever the process is standard and stable, yeah, payroll management application.
Something like really dynamic, like something from Uber or Facebook, where things change faster, that would be an agile method.
Correct. Any questions on whatever we spoke so far, folks?
Subhas, is there any advantages or disadvantages of this waterfall method in SDLC?
Yeah, I think as I said, advantage, if you are looking at the positive side of it, it's very organized, right? Systematic, it's organized, and it's basically by taking one step at a time, finishing everything and moving forward, you basically are ensuring that, the process is systematic and organized. But if you look at the other side of it, the disadvantage is that you cannot undo what you have already done. So that is one of the limitations from this process.
It's easier to hit deadlines with this.
I mean, the deadlines can be hit no matter whether it is waterfall or any model. But I think the limitation is that you cannot go back and forth. You cannot change. You cannot undo what you have done. And I think, yeah, and I think lately most of the business, you just cannot tell the business that, you are using waterfall model, I cannot change. So they don't give a damn, right? These days especially, the business is very agile. Every business pretty much is agile. And most of the projects are actually being converted from waterfall to agile model these days. Any questions, folks? All right, I think if you don't have questions, I think I want to stop the session for today. From next week, be prepared to stay here till 12:30. So from 9 to 12:30. I just want to take the first two sessions easy so that it's not overwhelming for you. And in the meantime, by Monday end of the day, the sessions will be uploaded. These two sessions that we had will be uploaded on the blog. And you can access the blog. And also the notes that I have documented here will be published on the blog as well. And if you want to see where the notes is, you have to go to the assignment section, and this is where I will be posting the blog, the notes as well. And please make sure that you are signing up for notifications. And if you have to sign up for notifications, as I said, all you have to do is just select this option and click subscribe to SiteSync. All you have to do. And if you need blog access, as I said, please email my team from your email ID, and by Monday noon, I'm positive that you will get the blog access. And if you have any further questions with respect to the blog, please call my team and they'll be able to help. Okay. Anybody else any questions before I wind up, folks?
Do we email Asha or do we email Robin or you?
Email Asha. Whoever you are working with, Asha or Sam or Robin, whoever you are working with.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not get the link for the assignment blog.
Yeah, as I said, right, you have to talk to my team and they'll give you the access.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, folks. You have
Hey,
one more day. Yeah.
Hey, Subhash, I was just going to ask you, do you mind if I just give you a call? I was trying to reach you yesterday.
Yeah, I'll call you back around noon today.
Okay,
okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
All
yeah,
right.
that's
Thanks.
great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.